Hello, everyone. Let's begin. We're going to go through our third session now. And the third session here is going to be dealing with the second part of Chapter 3 or Tutorial 3. Um, Hope you can all hear me okay here. If you remember, we were finishing up with number 10 on page AC 175 on Tutorial 3 in the homework. We were just simply talking about it. We're not going to actually do it together as a class, of course, but we are going to make sure that we can uh, finish them up so you at least get the concepts of it. Please remember to bring up your Belmont Landscaping Firm database that we've begun. Number 10 there, they're talking about doing filters. Let me review that a little bit. If I open up the customer table, come over here to the customer table here, and just double click. If we want to filter things out, filters really are things that are temporary to use while you're entering data. They really don't, they're not permanent. That's why if you do it in the homework, there's no real way I'm going to know that you did it, but it's still good to know how to do them. In order to do a filter, you simply click in the little arrow here, just like you would in a spreadsheet filter. If you click on the little arrow to the right of the column top, or the field name, it'll give you a list of all the different items in that list. So you want to first click Select All to remove the Select All and just simply click on the thing you want. For example, if I want a filter of that zip code and the zip code of 49007, I would click them both. I would simply click OK, and it will display only those zip codes. And that's what they're asking you to do in the 10th item of Tutorial 3 homework. Number 11 of your homework here, number 11 is asking you to just change the view of the query. That's not a very valuable thing because people usually don't use queries for viewing. They usually turn them into reports. But in order to appease the homework assignment thing, in order to remove the grid lines and change the format of the looks, you simply go into the Home ribbon, and then in the Home ribbon you come over here to Text Formatting. In this little box here, I can click where it says grid lines, and I can just simply say remove the grid lines altogether, just say none. We can get rid of them, or we can say we want them vertical or horizontal. If you go to the little button here to the right that indicates alternate row, you can also change things in there by simply saying we would like the alternate rows to be blue, for example. So those are some of the things they're asking you for there. Let's create now another. I'm going to close the customer table. Save that. But we're going to create another query here. Let's go to Create, and we're going to go to Query Design, and we're going to open up the customer table again. Just double click it and close. And then again, if you ever do that and then realize you should have added another table, all you need to do is click Show Table, and it'll bring that back up. Then we're going to this time click Agreement and click Add, and then Close. Now, what we're going to do at this point, I'm going to click and drag. You can click and drag these little boxes again and resize them so that they're easy to look at. But I'm going to put in there the last name, the first name, and the city. And we're then going to come over here and put in the contract type. Let's also put in the signing date. Now, if we run that, you'll see it will just give us all the records. But suppose we want records only after any time after 2010, and if we want some only from Holland, well, we're putting two criteria in there again. So if you go back to the design view, we can go. Let's do the signing date first. If we go down to the criteria box under signing date and put greater than equal, and we can put in there 1/1/11. That will actually give us everything from January 1st of 2011 on, which means the same thing. It is giving us everything after 2010. If we then come over here to the city and type the word Holland, then we click below there, that will get it to stay kind of like a spreadsheet does. Well, then we can get what we're looking for in the way of the criteria. But sometimes they will say we want the criteria here, but we simply don't want to display the field. See, if I run this query by clicking the Run button up here, it will show the signing date and Holland. But suppose they say we need those records, we just don't need to see, or we don't want to see the signing date. Well, if they don't want to see the field, you simply turn off the Show button here. Just click on it, remove the little check mark, and then if you run it again, you'll see you get the same records, only now it does not show that the contract date or signing date field. Okay, I hope you got to take a look at that. I had thought I had paused that. Anyway, let's move on here. Now, what I want to do next is I would like to show you here how to do a calculated field, and this is very valuable and important. Um, first, first, I would like you to go back in the design view of the query here, and we're going to add in there. Just click on the little pencil T square. We're going to double-click contract amount, and if you double-click it there, we're going to pretend that there is a 2% surcharge on every contract. So we're going to do a calculated field. Now the way to do a calculated field is, and you have to do this, there's several ways to do it, but this to me is the easiest. And the thing I will tell you, please be very careful here. If you create a database in 2010 or 2013, but then someone is going to use it opening it in 2007, calculated fields will only work in queries like we're about to do. You can create a calculated field in the design of the table. You never want to do that. You never ever want to do that if the people using your database may decide to use it in an earlier version before Office 2010. Anyway, the steps to create a calculated field. Step 1, go to the top box of the first blank column where you want the field. Step 2. The step 2 is not required, but I recommend it. Press and hold the Shift key and then tap the F2 key so that the zoom box will come up. And that way you can see what you're doing. Step 3. You must name the field. We're going to name this field surcharge because, we're going to name it surcharge because we're going to assume that, it's basically going to be calculating whatever surcharge we have per contract. Now please don't forget you've got to put a colon after the name you give this new calculated field. Not a semicolon, it must be a colon. Now in order to reference a field, kind of like you would in a spreadsheet referencing a cell, you must put a square bracket around the name of the field. So we're going to put a left square bracket, contract amount, AMT, got to spell it exactly as the field is named. You notice the contract amount field is down here, and we're spelling it exact. If you have a space in the contract amount field, you must put it up here. If they abbreviate the word amount, you must abbreviate it. So this field must be spelled exactly as the field name is. Please notice those are square brackets. They are not the set sign. You cannot use the set sign. You cannot use parentheses. It must be a square bracket. Then we're going to use the times or the asterisks. Remember in Excel and Access, the times is with an asterisk. Now, then you're going to put it times 2% because remember, this is going to have a 2% surcharge, and the 2% surcharge is 2% times the contract amount. We're going to put in there 0.02. Now, if you run this, you'll find that it will give us the calculation. But before you do, I want you to please note that we do not put square brackets around the 0.02 because the 0.02 is a constant, or it's a raw data. It is a value. You only need to put square brackets around field names, but you never put it around a number that you're going to multiply times that field. When you put brackets around it, you're telling Access that there is a field by that name. So now if you click OK, and you'll see here it pops it into the top box there. If you run it, you will see here it will calculate 2% times each of these contract amounts. Now the problem is you'll see that they are not a dollar sign, or they are not currency. In order to make them currency, step 1, return to the design view. Step 2, click on the little gray bar at the top of the field. Step 3, you come up here to Property Sheet. And in Property Sheet, you'll notice right here it has a place where you can put Format. So you're just going to hit the C key, and the word currency will pop in there. Let's save the query, and we're going to call this Queries 10 and on, we're going to call it, because really this query is what we're going to be using here for the remaining problems. Remember in the homework, it does tell you to copy one of the queries and then make changes to it. We've already talked about how to copy them. So we're going to click OK here, And then you'll notice if I close the property table and run the query, now you'll see all of those are indeed, there are now currency. Now let's close that query. We're going to do actually one more, but actually it's actually going to be number 15. Basically what we've done there is everything up through 10 and 13. I kind of lied there. We do have number 15 we're going to do. And we're going to do what they call grouping and summing here. In order to do the questions, or similar to what they're asking you for in the homework there, we're going to create a new query. Let's click Create. And again, we're going to go to the query design. Now, we're going to go to the customer table and agreement one more time, and we're going to click Close. Now, what I'd like you to do, please, is to double-click Contract Amount. And what we're going to do is we're going to get the total of all of the contract amounts. And it's just going to get a sum of them. Or as they call it, it's going to be an aggregate function. In order to do that, step one, after you have put the field in there that you want indeed to add up, then step two, you go up into totals. Now when you click on totals, nothing really happens except the word group by now shows up here. Now if you do a group by, it will simply say we're going to remove all the duplicates. But we're not interested in that. What we need to do is to go into this little drop-down box and then click Sum. Notice, please, we can get a whole lot of stuff there. We can get the sum, the average, the highest, or max rather, the min, the lowest, or we can get them to count. We can get a variance, a standard deviation, lots of stuff. But right now we're just going to get a sum. So if you get the sum there and you run it, you will see that is the total amount we have in contracts in this database. But what if we want to get the average? Well, you probably saw that already. Let's return to the design view. And we're then going to go back to the total drop-down box. We're going to change it to average. And once again, we'll return and run the query. So the average contract amount is $27,222.69. Now they're asking you to resize these columns. You can place your mouse on the column there, on the line that separates the columns. You get a little black cross. And just like you would in Microsoft Excel, you can double-click it and it will do a best fit. Or you can simply click and drag and resize it. Now, let's do something else that they're asking us for. This is a very valuable tool, by the way. We can click on the design view, and we can come up here now, and we're going to say, but let's see what the average contract is per customer. So we're going to double-click last name and double-click first name, and then we're going to rerun the query, and it will just remove all the duplicates of the customers. And if we run it again, it will basically say Nancy Bellinger has an average of $252,000. Harry Billings has an average of $17,750, and so on. Now, of course, if some of these customers have only one contract, then the average will be the same as the amount. But this way, it kind of gives us subtotals. Or sub-averages. Let's do a subtotal item here. Notice you can see which one you picked by the name of the field here. This says average of contracts, so you know it's averaging we're doing now. But let's return to the design view, and let's go in here and change the average to sum. And now if we click sum, we'll get the total, or a subtotal, of everything that the customers have done. You can see these are different numbers here because some of these customers have done more than one contract. So that is how you would do the summing or the aggregate functions as they ask you for number 15. If I want to change the format of any one of those, I can simply click in the design view. Again, just like we did earlier with the calculated field before, we can click right on this gray bar here, and we're going to go to Property Sheet. Now again, we can say this time we would still like currency, but we don't need the pennies. So the number of decimal places would be 0. With numbers this big, sometimes, I think most of them don't even have pennies there. So that's a way that you can change that part. So that would be very helpful. Another thing you may notice here is sometimes they might want you to change the caption. We don't want it to say sum of contract. So what we can do is we can click on caption and we can change the caption of the field. We might want to put in here total contracts. And that would also be something that the book will ask you for. Let's click Save again, and this time we're going to call this query 15. And then we click OK. Let's run it again, and we'll see that there is a difference here. All the pennies are gone. Let's move now to number 4, tutorial 4. And let's go ahead and close this last query we just did. Please remember we already created a form in the first tutorial. It was the customer form. What questions they're going to be asking you about in tutorial 4 is how to change the design of that. The first thing that they're asking us to do on page AC 187 is to change the theme of this form. In order to change the theme of a form, step 1, click on the little design view here for the form. We go into the design view. Step 2, you will see up here in the upper left where it says themes. Now at this point, when the homework asks you to change the theme, just simply choose the one that they've asked you for. If you place your mouse on these and let it wait for a second, the little name of it will come down. So for example, if they ask you for the facet theme, that is the second from the left on the top row, we simply click it, and you may not see a difference. Some of these really don't change very much. Or if they were to ask you for this one here, you'll notice it changed a little bit. The change is sometimes not that dramatic, but that is how you would do it. So now you go to the form view, and you'll see that the letters are a little bit different, and so too is the data. Again, you can see that there is a difference. On page 189, they would like you to add a picture to the form. Now, we have a picture we can get anywhere, really. Any image, any clip art, or something you have saved can be put anywhere you want. But let's just suppose it. Let's click on this little label here, and let's resize it so we can make room for it. So that's the first step, is just to make sure you have a place for the image you're going to put in. Step 2, you'll notice here in the design view of this form here, if you click into like the area of you have to kind of click in the header here, you'll notice it'll say insert image. So all you need to do now is simply go find it. So we're going to click browse, and we're going to go find the picture we would like in there. Now it might take a few seconds for your computer to bring up this the dialog box, depending on where you are. But nevertheless, I'm going to pull one in, actually that's from your homework. Please remember the landscape database is different than the tutorials that your book is doing, because I'm trying to give you two perspectives. One of them is donations, another one of them is a landscaping firm. But I'm trying to help you see as many different examples as possible. Of course, with your homework, it's the donors to the shelter. I said it wrong as far as the tutorial for your book. The book is doing a medical organization. So we've got like 3 different kinds you're going to be doing here. Anyway, I'm going to pull the one in from your homework just because I know where that is. So that's the thing. Whenever you store an image you want to put in a form, you got to remember where you put it. So now we're going to go find it. I have mine on my flash drive here. So we're going to go into the flash drive. We're just going to pull it up. It'll take me a few seconds here. But again, all you're doing really is simply finding the image. So I'm going to go down here to the Wright State folder I have here for this class, and there should be an image right in there. If you can't find it, it should give you it depends on which kind we're talking about here. Now what you may need to do, like in my case, I had to choose all files because the one I'm looking for, well, let's just, I don't know, if we do the animals one, that's the one the homework is doing. If you click on animals, and it's a bitmap file, you click OK, and then your mouse will kind of look like this. This picture's kind of stuck to the mouse. So now if I click right here at the 5-inch mark, you'll see it'll bring the image up. So that's how you insert an image. And another thing that they ask you to do is to click it on the title. Of course, I can do this on any field. I can do it on a label. I can do it on a field data box. I can click on the title. But then they're asking you to change the color. So you can simply click on it, go up to Format, and just like you can in Word and Excel, you can simply choose the color that you want. At this point, let's go ahead and close the form now. Or actually, let's go ahead and look at it in the form view, and then we'll close it here. Let's go back over here to Home and then the form view. We'll just kind of take a look at it here. Then we're going to close it. Just so you are aware here, you can do basically anything as far as deleting records, finding records, or navigating to records. It's basically the same as you would in a table. Here's the navigation pane down here, and basically everything is virtually the same as it is for tables. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to create what they call a main and a subform. Now before we go any further on that, you need to understand why we need a main and a subform. For example, Let's suppose we want to do a new agreement. I'm going to open up the agreement table, and let's suppose I want to start filling out an agreement or contract, and all at once I realize that the customer that I want to put in there and assign to that agreement doesn't even exist. They're a new customer. Well, then what I would have to do is I would have to leave this table, then I would have to come over here to customer, add the customer, and then I would have to close the table, then come back to agreement, and then add the agreement. And I can tell you that companies that would have a database built by you would never tolerate all of that moving around. We want to make it one-stop shop. So what we're going to do here is we're going to take the customers and have the information for each customer at the top, and then all their information about their agreements and theirs alone would be below. So you'll get a flavor for how this works here in just a few minutes. Let me show you an example of another one, kind of where we're going here. Let me show you an accounting software package I wrote, just to kind of give you an idea of what we mean by main and subform. If you click on order entry, for example, if I do, I'm just going to show you this. It's like here's the client up here, and then down here are all their sales. You don't want to have to leave the screen. The nice thing about it is, you see here's customer 1, Jane Smith, and whoever, and if you go take a look at those things, you will see that as we go from customer 1, it shows everything down here below. That's what we're going to do with this Belmont Landscaping. Because if we do a new customer, we can go up here and put the customer information in, and immediately, without leaving the screen, we can come down here and start putting information about their sales, or in this case, with Belmont, it's going to be landscaping. So let me close that. That's the software package that I sell all around the country. Anyway, so let's go ahead and create the main and subform. In order to do that, step 1, we go to create. Step 2, you have to have already in your mind exactly what is going to be the main form and what is going to be in the subform. Typically, almost every time, it is the parent table that you will put in the main form, the parent table we talked about in the last session, and it is the child table that is going to be used in the subform. So in this case, the parent table is customer, the child table is agreement. So we're then going to go to the form wizard. So if you click on form wizard, you have to understand that this is very user unfriendly. This is something you may have to play back a few times. Microsoft does not make this very user friendly here, with all due respect. So the first thing you have to do is you got to do 4 things in this screen. If you miss one of them, this is not going to be right. So the first thing you got to do in this screen is you have to choose the table for the main form. Well, in this case, it's going to be customer. The second thing you have to do in the same screen is you have to choose the fields. We're going to use all the fields. So we click on the little double arrow, we send them all over. Next, same screen. Don't leave the screen yet. You come up here and then you choose the child table. If you remember, the child table is going to be agreement. The fourth thing you will do is you will choose every field except you don't need the usually often you don't need the customer ID or the foreign field, but for now we're going to send it over anyway. So you click the double arrow and you send it over. Now you click next. Now when you get to this next screen, it must look like this. You must have the field, so the parent table, or in this case the customer table up top, and then down below you would have the agreement fields down below. If it doesn't look like that, you've missed one of the steps on the previous screen. And then you click next, and it's simply asking you what format you want. Now do whatever the textbook wants, but I can tell you most of the time we do tabular in reality. But do whatever the textbook tells you. Now if we go to next again, we're simply going to have to name both forms, the main form and the subform. Now since there's already a customer form, we have to name it something other than customer. That's why I put a 1 there, saying, well, there's already one called customer, so it thinks we want to name it customer 1, but we don't. We're going to call it customer master, update main form. We're going to leave the subform the way it is. Agreement subform is a good name for that. So we simply click finish. And when we click finish, you will see that what I was talking about is exactly what we've created. I'm going to remove the navigation pane. You're going to see the customer information is here. And if we scroll down, you will see there are all the contracts down below. So if I choose to add a new customer by clicking the little star down here in the lower right of the navigation pane, if I click it, I can add the new customer data here, and then immediately, I'm going to just put a fake one here, I'm going to go in there and put in, I don't know, I'm going to put in, uh, I'll put my name in here. That's not even coming. I'm going to go with first John, and then the last name is Herzog. I'm going to come down here and put in the contract. Oops, sorry about that. I forgot to put in the customer number. I'm going to make myself 1,000. And then what will happen here is I will immediately come down here and put in my contract number. Let's suppose I'm contract number 777. You may notice that it automatically puts in my customer ID for me. I don't have to go looking it up or whatever. It just sticks it in there for me. So then I can continue to create more records for John Herzog or whomever I have just started. It makes it a one-stop shop, and that's the beauty of a main and a subform. And I can tell you, just about everywhere you go with databases, that's the kind of format that they want. Now, please notice that Microsoft does make these fields very large, and we would have to go in there and resize them to make this thing a little bit more pleasant. For example, in this case, let's go into the form view, and the design view. We're going to go in there, and we're going to resize some of these fields. For example, just watch me here. I'm going to do a little bit of modification here. I'm going to come up here and we're going to select all of these fields. We really don't have to have them so large. So if we select them all, and the way you select fields, by the way, in a form view, a form design view rather, is just to draw a box around them. That's one way. And then once you've drawn the box, you simply go up here to Arrange, Size and Space, and Shortest. And that will make them all the same size. Now what you can do is go up here to Align and Top. And now you'll see we're not using up so much room there. Now we're going to come down here to the Agreement label. I'm going to click right on the upper left corner. See, if I try to move the field like that without going to the corner, it moves the whole thing. But if I place my mouse on the upper left box, I get a little tiny black star. Then I can click and drag only the label. Now I'm going to have us select these by just drawing a little box around them, and press and hold the left arrow key on your keyboard, and then press and hold the up one, and this helps us to move these things around in a way that it gets them where we want them here. But now I'm going to have you click down in the subform, and I'm going to have you press and hold the Shift key and click on the little label above, contract number. That's another way to select items, is to click on one and then press and hold the Shift key and click on another. Then we're simply going to resize that. I'm going to do the same with customer ID. We're going to click on that, Shift click, and we're going to press and hold the left arrow key. We're going to bring it over. And another way that you can resize things is to press and hold the Shift key and hit the left arrow key. That will also bring these things over. Now, I'm going to scroll this down a little bit. The problem we're having now, you might notice, is that it's hiding the other fields. So I'm going to click outside the subform just a minute. I'm going to select the subform again. I'm going to resize the subform again. Now, you notice these fields over here, we're going to have to change those a little bit. Now, something I forgot to mention here is if I want to click down in here to work in the subform, I sometimes have to click twice before it'll work. Now, we're now going to scroll over here, and we're going to get these other fields here. Like contract amount, we're going to select that, and we're going to go and resize both of those. Select it by clicking a box around. We're going to resize them, just like we would a clip art. Now, the contract type, we might want to keep that relatively large, because that's a lot of data they put in there. But now we're going to scroll back. Another way you can select a bunch of fields and controls in a form is to place your mouse in the little ruler here, and you notice it has a little black arrow pointing at them. If I click and drag down, it selects them all. So now once again I can come up here to Align and click left, and then they all line up like we did Align top a minute ago. Now they align left. Now I can hit the left arrow key, and I can come up here to Size and Space, and I can click Shortest. So that will be helpful. So now we can just scroll over here for a little bit. We're going to place our mouse on the edge of the subform over here. We're going to click and drag and shore that up so we don't have all that wasted space in there. I'm going to move this scroll bar to the left, and now I'm going to do the same thing with the footer at the bottom so that the records don't take up so much space. Now I'm going to scroll the entire main form. Now we're going to go outside the subform. We're going to come down here. We're going to shore up by placing the mouse on the little bar here on form footer. We're going to click and drag and shore that up. Let's save the form. Let's go back to design and to the form view. We'll see we have a much better looking main and subform than we did earlier. Now, please remember, if you shrink something too much, dates and numbers will give you pound signs. So that's what caused that. We just simply shrank it too much. We'd have to go in there and resize it. So that's how you make a main and a subform. Let's save it. Now we're going to close the form, and we're going to do an entirely different thing now. We're going to make a report. That's what they refer to as a group and total report. The group and total reports simply will make it so that we will see each customer, and below it we'll see there a same thing, kind of like a subform and subreport, only this is a subform and, excuse me, a main form and a subform. This is going to be kind of like a main report and a subreport, only of course you cannot change the data in a main and a subreport. This is just so we can kind of get a summary without having to look at two different items here. We don't have to go looking at the table for that. We don't have to match up the customer numbers with the transactions. We can put them all in one. And so you'll see, and again, we're now on page AC209. You can kind of get a flavor for where we're headed with this. Actually, AC207 is what they're actually going to be shooting for. It's going to be looking something like that. So you can see we got, like in their case, they have the patient and then all their visits. Remember, that's a clinic or a medical firm that the book is using for your tutorial. But again, I'm showing you this other perspective here with the customers and contracts. So we're going to say customers and their agreements. So here's how you do it. Step one, you go to create. And then the only thing is you got to remember, now we're going to reports, not forms. So you come over here now to the report wizard. Now the same thing's going to happen here as we did a minute ago with the main and subform. Only this time we're going to have, you have to remember first, you have to have usually the parent table is going to be the main report, and then the child table will be the subreport. So we're going to come in here and we're going to click on customer again. We're going to send, actually we're not going to put all the fields over there. We're just going to put in here the contact last and send it over, contact first and send it over. And the reason I'm showing you that is because I want you to see that you can, again, take those over individually. We're going to take the street address over, and that's all we're going to do with the customer. So we've done the main report table, or the parent table. We've sent the fields over. That's the second thing. Remember, the third thing, we have to choose in this case, we're going to choose agreement. We're going to choose, the third step we do is we choose the child table. And finally, we're going to send those fields over as well. But all I want is the contract amount and the signing date. We only want those 5 fields over. So you can see this is very similar to what we did with the main and sub form. The process is almost the same at this point. Now we click next. Same thing. It's going to say, okay, here is the data for the main, and down here is the data for the sub. In this case, the main report and the sub report. So we click next again. Now it's asking us if it wants to add any groups. We don't want to do that in this case. The reason you would do that is if I would say, I want everybody from Holland. And so it'll say, here are the Holland people, and here is this customer, and here are their transactions or agreements. But we don't need to do that right now, so we're going to click Next. It's now asking us what the sort order will be, but it's only doing it in the detail records. What they mean by the detail records, in this case, is the subreport. Well, we would like it to be, if you click up top here, we would like it to be we're going to sort by the signing date. People say, well, why aren't we going to sort by the name of the customer? Because it's already understood that it's going to sort by the primary key there. It's going to sort by the number there, and that's why we don't even have a choice there. The only thing they're asking us about here is how we will sort the subreport. Now here you can see whether or not, you can decide whether or not you want it to be ascending or descending order. And please don't miss this down here. Don't forget to click Summary Options if, in fact, we want to get a sum of each contract. If you miss that, then you've got to go in and do it manually, and it's a little tougher. You have to kind of play around to do that. So you click Sum there, and you click OK, and then you click Next. So don't forget those summary options. And if you had 6 fields there that you could add, those would have all been available there. Now the next thing that they're asking us to do is to choose the format. On page AC211, that's where we are now, they're asking us for the outline view. And so, and they want us to remain portrait. So we're going to leave it as portrait, and we click next again. Here we're simply adding a title to it. So this is called Customers and Their Agreements. And you click Finish. And now you basically have the ability to see, here's customer 1 and here's their transactions. Here's Owen Hawes, and Owen Hawes has 2 transactions. Notice again the pound signs means we're going to have to widen that date field because that's a problem. So otherwise, this is now what the book is asking us for. Let's go in now and resize those fields for the signing date so we don't get those pound signs anymore. As always, step 1, in this case you simply close the print preview and it'll take you, I hope it does, it should take you immediately to design view. There it goes, thank you. So if you click on the signing date field and then press and hold shift and click the signing date label, we can go to the left side and get a double arrow, and we're going to pull it or resize it to the left here, just as you would if you were going to resize a clip art. Let's save it. And then let's go back and see this in the print preview again. And you'll see that's how you would make any adjustments again. In the reports, it's the same as it is in the forms. So that will be able to make it a little easier to use and to read. Last but not least for this chapter now, we're going to talk about what they call conditional formatting. And that's something you've also done if you've never done Excel. Again, what I'm about to show you works the same way if you want to do this in the form. Sometimes we want a label or something to stand out. Not a label. You can't do it with labels. With a field, you want it to stand out with a specific color if it turns a specific value. For example, let's suppose if we have a transaction that is more than so many years old, we want it to jump out to indicate, hey, these people, it's been a while since these transactions took place. Maybe we should be calling these people and say, hey, how about more sales? So we could also say, well, if the value of the agreement is over a certain amount, maybe they're a preferred customer or something. So that's the type of thing you can do. Again, what I'm about to show you works the same way in forms. So let's do this now. Let's go into the design view. Let's click Close Print Preview. Now, normally, if you open the screen in Print Preview, if you've done so like long after you've made the report, then you simply need to go to the design view up here. Same thing. What we're going to do is we're going to go to Contract Amount. Now, this is the label up here. These are all, by the way, called controls. Okay. We're going to go to the actual field data, though. We don't want the label. Again, you can't change the format of a label using conditional formatting. You can, as I showed you earlier, go up there and change the color if you want. And that's the same as it is as we do in the form. And they're asking you to do that in the book. The procedure is the same. But conditional formatting is different. So you must click on the field with the data. In that case, that's what I've chosen here. So in order to do conditional formatting, step 1, you click on that box. Step 2, you come up here under the Format tab now. Make sure in the Report Design Tools you're in the Format tab, and then click Conditional Formatting. Now in this case, we're going to do a new rule. Click on New Rule, and we're simply going to say if the field value is, in this case, we're going to say is greater than, we're going to put in here 10,000. Now please remember that you should not put dollar signs there. It's just looking for a value here. You're going to come up here, then you're going to change the look of it. So if that happens, we're going to say down here, here's what the format should look like. Let's make the background red, and let's make the color of the letters to be white and bold. Let's let this really jump out. So if we click OK now, and then it'll give us kind of a preview of what it will look like if the value of that contract amount goes over $10,000. So we can just simply click OK. And again, you won't see much difference there. Let's save this. You won't see much difference there until you actually run the report. So let's go to Design and come over here to Print Preview, and you will see the contract amount label is red only because we set it that way permanently. But you see these on page 2 here are dramatically different because of the format we asked for. So they've changed colors, saying, hey, these are customers that are big customers, and you really want to note that. So that is how you would do condition. So now we have covered everything from tutorial 4. Now I'm not going to go through each of the homeworks at this point for this tutorial or this session of recording, because we needed to do it in that last one because those queries are actually very complex and complicated, and I really felt we needed that attention. But I believe we've covered everything now that you need for the homework. If it appears that I need to do another session to clarify some of the things in the homework, I may do that. But many of the questions will likely happen when we do our question and answer sessions on Sunday night. So this concludes our third session that covers up through the end of tutorial 4.